First off, Rewiring America is a philanthropic nonprofit that promotes electrification and centers highly in on high efficiency heat pumps as well as also heat pump water heaters. You could take a high efficiency heat pump, if you don't install it correctly, you're not getting the benefit. We want to do heat pumps responsibly because not everything is a fit, and we do know that. We actually negotiated discounted pricing with those contractors. We did all the marketing. The leads cost you absolutely nothing. But here's the things we require. An actual job site visit, a proper load calculation, audit of the electrical panel, all these things that are necessary to make sure that this is done correctly. What the homeowners got out of that, though, was typically about a 20% discount on what they could have got on the street.
Hey, Huff, I appreciate you coming on the channel, man. I met you last fall at the NCI Summit, and you told me a little bit about your program with Rewiring America. But why don't you tell the audience here, like who you are, what you do with Rewiring America, and kind of how you got into this position?
Well, my name is Huff. I tell everybody this. It's not my real name. It's the name that I got with that was given to me when I left the hospital. I'm named after my dad, so I was the second. And so, because everybody asked me, where's the name Huff come from? Because I spell it different than Hoffmaster. But I was born the second. I'm a second generation HVAC technician and practitioner, and my son's third generation. Really kind of proud of that. But I am the contractor success manager with Rewiring America. And what that entails is, first off, Rewiring America is a philanthropic funded nonprofit that promotes electrification and centers highly in on high efficiency heat pumps as well as also heat pump water heaters.
Okay.
And the thing is they knew that they wanted to get this to market because we know HVAC is the largest consumer of power in our home, right? And so it was really geared toward low to moderate income houses. And so the problem is they had this desire and they were making connections, but they didn't really have a basis of knowledge to understand what does a successful high efficiency heat pump install look like, what is necessary. They knew that they knew there were certain things the guidelines needed to go by, right? They knew they needed a load calculation. They knew they need proper sizing and all that. But what does an installation look like? And what does proper commissioning of the system look like? And so they didn't have that background, nor did they have a contracting background to understand, as you and I both know, the language for contractors is different. It's just when you start talking to a fellow contractor or a tradesman, you just kind of know it's just a lingo that we know, right? And so
Yeah.
They were looking for somebody that could help them, be able to set the standards, if you will, and write the standards so that when they started looking at going to neighborhoods and to areas where they were going to promote electrification and promote high efficiency heat pumps, being able to partner with contractors that they know we're actually going to follow the guidelines and complete the job the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so that's the first part. The second part of that then was building a network of these contractors, right? So it's one thing to set the standards, right? But how do you follow through? And so just to kind of give you a context for that, and a little over 2 year span over the, Rewiring's website, rewiring.org has had over 1 million people view the website. Over 40,000 people have created electrification plans because they have a whole host of planning tools, electrification tools, where homeowners can go on, put in the different items in their house and see kind of, what their water consumption, see what the possibilities of savings are and how to make an electrification plan to move away from delivered fuels or whatever. So we had, over 1 million views, visitors, over 40,000 people create plans. Out of that 40,000, 25% of them were heat pump only, right? So, but the problem was then it's now that the people say, okay, I got my plan, right? Now I need to do it and then find a contractor.
Yeah.
Right. So
and hopefully your panel can accept it, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so there's these things that need to be viewed and the electrification planners and tools they have, they point them toward different things such as like, watt diet type of apps and stuff. So they can kind of go in, plug in what they have and see, shows them how to go to the panel box, what to look for and take pictures and these kind of things to kind of prep them. But at the end of the day, it needed a contractor to come in and properly look at the panel box, properly size the heat pump, properly do a load calculation first, then size the heat pump, and then install it, and then commission it correctly, right? So all that. So the problem was, is at that time before I got there, they were sending, when they had find a contractor, they basically were sending them out to OEMs type of websites, like, Carrier Find a Dealer, Mitsubishi Find, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And those are all great, but listen, I worked for a Carrier for 11 years doing tech support. I worked for York for 6 years doing tech support. So I know that not everybody on this list, there's people who purchase that equipment, but that doesn't mean that they're going to do the work the way it needs to be. Because you and I know at the end of the day, you could take a high efficiency heat pump, if you don't install it correctly, you're not getting the benefit.
And it's not going to last nearly as long.
It's not going to last as long. Your power consumption is going to be greater. You're not going to be comfortable, and it's going to put a bad taste in your mouth, right? So to get people to go all the way up until now where they're ready to pull the trigger, and then not being able to control what happens after that,
Yeah.
was the reason that we decided to build the contractor network. And we didn't want to start from scratch because, well, we didn't, it's a lot of work. And so that's when we partnered up with Better HVAC, with Bill Spone and Kevin Hart, because they already had a database going.
Yeah.
And they're
Makes a lot
like,
of sense.
yeah, so why don't we partner up? And so we created the Rewiring America badge, right? As you know, you can go into Better HVAC and apply for your Rewire badge, which will send you into, understanding our guidelines, taking the 7-step pledge, which is that you'll, perform loads, even if it's just a retrofit job. Because a lot of people like, okay, if it's a new house, they'll do a load, but if it's a retrofit, they're just trusting whoever was there before us, right? And I don't know, maybe I live in West Virginia, and so I can make fun of hillbillies because I am that. But I always say, I don't know if Bubba sized that house. No
Yeah.
offense to the Bubbas of the world, right? But
Yeah.
they may have stood out there on the sidewalk and did the finger method, right? How many fingers does it take to cover up the house? That's how many tons you need. And so, I don't like trusting my reputation and my name to anybody else, to be quite honest with you. So anytime I do them, because I'm still a licensed contractor in my state, I do a job occasionally. I don't trust my reputation to anybody, right? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that walkthrough. I'm going to do that load. I'm going to make sure it's done right. So anyway, after they take the pledge, we also verify their license and insurance and stuff like that. And then they are able to become a part of our contractor network. So, the whole thing with what we're trying to accomplish at Rewire is promote electrification, but understanding that there are things that inhibit it as well. And so we need contractors that are going to go out and do their due diligence. Right. And that's when we really started to try to partner up and pair up with home performance experts like yourself, because there's one thing to look at the equipment, but a load calculation is only as good as the discovery work. Right.
Yeah. Did
Uh,
you do a blower door? Have you actually looked at the insulation? What have you done to what are the inputs going into this, right?
exactly. And that's why we've kind of broadened. Now we need to kind of change our verbiage a little bit, but that's why we've reached out to folks like you, that we want home performance people, because sometimes people will come to our site and they'll actually be looking for a contractor that will do a load calculation or do a blower door. And my thing is to really do a load calculation right, you have to do a blower door. You have to know what that infiltration rate is,
Yeah, for
to
sure.
kind of understand, and so that you can do it correctly. But what it also will do is, what I love about what you do, and I'll be honest with you, so I worked for OEMs for so long, and maybe I'm spilling the beans here and kind of like I'm sitting laying on a couch talking to my therapist, but I worked for the OEM so long that I was really good at making machines run, Eric. I mean, that was my thing, right?
Yeah,
I could also not only make them run, but I could make sure they were doing what they were supposed to. I could verify. We could understand DHUM. We could all understand all these things. But once I verified the equipment, that's where I had to leave,
yeah,
right? Because sometimes it's the big duct that's the problem, the envelope of the house, right? There's something else going on, or incorrect sizing. That's where the OEMs walk away. They don't have anything to do with that. They don't want, hey, we didn't size it. We didn't do the load. We're not responsible. And that's where I'd have to walk away. And then I get into this world and try to get, and kind of get back into the contracting side, but dig into high performance contracting.
yeah. Look at the bigger picture here.
Yeah. And that's where people like you have just kind of made me hungry to know more. It's like, for all these years, I thought I was kind of, in a top group of people, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, I can make machines run and make them run well, but it doesn't mean I was making the home comfortable, right? And so it
Yeah.
really made me look at life a lot different.
I've had the same conversation with a few different recent guests that I've had, and it's unfortunate how siloed the insulation, weatherization, and the HVAC industry has been up until recently. Because you have your experts in HVAC, and some of them are so-called experts, and they don't actually commission, they don't really test. But the ones that do test, they're very competent at their trade, and they can make that system hum, right? But if they don't understand the bigger picture of the shell of the house, how the air is moving in and out of it, the insulation, vapor drive, all these other things that go into it that directly affect the comfort of their customers and the performance of their system, then they're missing a big piece of it. So I'm really encouraged just in the last 5 or 10 years to see more of that collaboration and that cooperation between these different trades. And it sounds like you've been fully on board here recently as well.
Yeah, and I've always been about proper commissioning because one of the things that you find in the OEM world, people would call in like they would be complaining, "Hey, I put this unit in 6 months ago. Now it's got a failed compressor, and the homeowner wants a new compressor." I've had people have 20-ton rooftops and they got compressor failures and they want a new unit. I'm like, okay, I don't think we're going to crane another 20 ton. We got to figure out what's happening. But so I've always been about proper commissioning. As far as that part is concerned.
Yeah,
But it was everything else outside of that that affects comfort that I was just blinded to,
yeah,
because that wasn't in my purview. That's not what I did, and it really, wow, what a world out there. And so there's so many great voices like yourself that's building content and helping get this word out and doing the work, and I've actually asked a few people that are kind of near me. It's like, I got a blower door set up now and I got a duct blaster kit. I got the full Monty now. And it's like, okay, now of course, we ended up with like really crazy weather, so I ain't tried it yet because I don't know that I'm going to leave my door open like that. As soon as it warms up, I'm going to do my own house. But I'm like, now I'm actually kind of scheduling to go out with some folks because I need to dig deeper in that.
if you got a blower door and you've got an infrared camera, and when it's cold, that is the best time to go out there and find stuff because the greater the temperature difference, the more you're going to see with those infrared cameras. I mean, even the sensitive ones. So I would tell everybody, I'm not going out unless there's at least a 20-degree temperature difference. Will I be able to see something at 20? Sure. But I'm not going to find as much. And it's up to you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. Like, I would rather be there when it's 20 or 30 degrees out there because I'm going to see a lot more detail. But generally, I speaking, I can find what I need to find. But yeah, don't be afraid to take that blower door out when it's cold. Just don't you don't have to run it at 50 pascals the entire time. I'll usually ramp it, get my CFM 50 number, and then I'll drop it down in half to like 25 just to keep it going to find the air leaks, while I'm
Oh
using
wow,
the
yeah.
IR.
Yeah, I just don't I don't have the, I don't have the experience with it yet, but that makes sense. I will tell you though, I did upgrade my thermal camera because I've been using thermal cameras for a long time. It helps you find issues in coils, reverse them out. I mean, thermal cameras
Sure.
are some of the greatest tools that people don't use and that
Yeah.
technicians don't have. I
Yeah.
upgraded mine, and my son loved it so much that I gave it to him and I bought another one. So True Tech Tools is loving me these days. But I told my wife, I said, I actually had it out it was just like last week. It was really cold and I had it out and I just wanted to see some areas of my house, because I bought my sister out of the house that I grew up in, right? And so this house was kind of built in Texas in the 70s. And so
Okay.
I got all kind of issues going on here, but I'm trying to little by little whittle them down. And so I got my thermal camera out and I can show you where every roof truss I have is, dude. It's like
Wow.
all these lines. I'm like, well, there's some thermal conductivity happening there. Look at that. It
Yeah.
was, it was, man, it's mind blowing when you look at it and don't even talk about the attic hatch. Oh my goodness. It was like, wow, I need to do something with that. So been working on sealing that up. So it's been
Yeah.
really interesting to see that.
What kind of camera are you using?
I'm using the Testo. I think it's the 860. Um,
Is that the standalone or is it the Wi-Fi connected to the phone
it's the
tablet
Wi-Fi
one?
connected to the phone.
Okay. So you can see dew point if you have your hygrometer connected to it.
Yes, yeah, I bought the hygrometer to go as well, especially like for the moisture issues and stuff. You could find that, but yeah, I got that. And the reason I kind of get that is because I'm a big Measure Quick fan and I teach it a lot, and I love being able to take those thermal pictures and have it on my phone, and then be able to upload that in the report, and it all goes into the same report, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Plus, actually, Testo has a pretty nice report that you can report out as well. It
Yeah.
doesn't make you recreate something. I don't have to bring pictures and paste them in and make a PDF. It's already kind of done in there.
Yeah, I love the smartphone infrared cameras that they got these days, and I've done several videos on them, but they're, generally 200 to $400 now. I mean, and they give you the resolution that back in the day you'd have to spend 3 to $10,000 to get that kind of resolution, and they're really affordable. But yeah, they've got a bunch of different versions of them, so that's cool. So you were mentioning like the whole shell game and understanding air leakage and all that kind of stuff in houses. Is that actually part of the the rewiring program? Is that like, do they want you to air seal the house and do some, stuff like that first?
Yeah, there are some projects that we have done that actually, like in Rhode Island, where it's part of the also because what Rewire tries to do, they try to find where there are big rebates and stuff that they can partner up with to really kind of make it make sense. And then they do all this, they're really good at this digital marketing and all these kind of things, but they kind of get with these other community based organizations or these entities that have these rebates. And so Rhode Island was one that had some really great rebates, but it was tied to actually having your house weatherized, right? And it had to be weatherized within the last, I think, 4 years or something like that. So there was a report that had to be done and all that to be able to get that rebate. And so it was all tied together, which is the best bang for your buck. I mean, if you can tie the HVAC rebates with the high efficiency to weatherization, then the homeowner's going to get the greatest benefit.
Yeah. I mean, you really don't want to put a heat pump on a leaky house. I mean, bottom line, you really, because it's going to take more effort for that heat pump to maintain a leaky house, a comfortable temperature in a leaky house than it would be like a gas furnace where you've got 120, 130 degree air coming out of it. I always recommend people air seal that house as best you can, especially if you're going with a heat pump system or even if it's a dual fuel and you got the backup. Really, the shell game's kind of the priority, and obviously sealing ductwork, making sure your ductwork's the proper size and all that kind of stuff. So,
I started in HVAC on the sheet metal side with my dad because that's really kind of was his thing. And when I graduated, I mean, I was doing it in the summers. Like, Lord knows that I don't think OSHA was present back then. You could get away with that stuff. My dad would have me on high rise jobs down in Washington D.C. and Tyson's Corner, and and as a teenager, 15 years old, and so, but what I knew was that when I got to be an adult and I graduated high school, I wanted to get in the service game. That's I wanted to do service. I didn't want to bang duck, and so I ended up working for a company uh, named Whitman Mechanical. It's no longer it got sold several years back, but I ended up working for a guy who was a great engineer. I mean, this guy was like graduated magna cum laude from Rutgers. He was the most intelligent guy, and he treated me like a son. He was the greatest guy, and so he did all the engineering stuff. And so it wasn't that as a technician that we wasn't involved in it, but it was like that's what he did, right? I just made sure the equipment run. He did all the sizing stuff, but we did a lot of geothermal back then, even before the rebates became a big deal. We're talking like mid '90s
okay,
up into the early 2000, and we did a lot of geothermal heat pumps. And I mean, it's just amazing what those things could do. But then all of a sudden, I ended up leaving there um, when I knew he was going to sell, and I didn't want to be part of the buyout. And so I ended up going to work for Carrier, and then they ended up the Green Speed coming out. This high efficiency
yeah,
inverter heat pump that was getting performance nearing that
geothermal, yeah,
for a quarter of the cost, right?
yeah,
But at the end of the day, and the reason I mentioned all this, because I just remember going to a house in Middleburg, Virginia. I don't know if anybody watching will ever know where that is, but it's an expensive little horse town in Loudoun County, Virginia. Loudoun County is the richest county in the nation, just so you
uh,
know, just to put it in
okay,
context, right? Big horse farms. I remember I went out and looked at one horse farm, was talking to this guy about doing some ductless work in his house. He's like, "You need to go to my buddy's house. It's Bobby." I'm like, "Bobby who?" He's like, "Bobby Duvall." He like literally lived next door to Robert Duvall's ranch, right? So out
okay,
there. And so anyway, we went out to this house, me and John Whitman, and I'm all geared up, man, because I was the one that kind of was going to land this sale, right? So I just wanted him to go out. When we do these big projects, we would walk him together. He did all the engineering stuff. We're pulling tape, we're doing all this stuff, and he's looking at his house. He said, "Geothermals, this is not a fit for you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's not a fit." I mean, these people are ready to spend money. I mean, he said, "Huff,
yeah,
until they do something with this building. Do you realize that part of this house was built in the late 1800s? The rest of it was built in the 30s, and they are not going to be happy. They're not going to be comfortable, and I'm not putting my name on it unless they do something different." And I just remember just feeling so dejected that day. But
what are
you
you
know,
doing, man? You're handicapping me here.
yeah. Then on the drive back, we got talking about it. He's like, one day maybe it'll be your name over the door, and you could take responsibility. He said, "But I promise you, you're gonna figure this out that was a bad deal." And of course, now I'll look back and I'm like, I'm so glad he did that because it made me think, right? It's like, but so many people would have just tried to sell it,
Yeah,
right? Without even knowing or thinking. And
about a house that old. I mean, if it's built before the 1930s, it probably had balloon style framing, no top plates. Tons of air movement through exterior and interior walls that would need to be addressed. And so he's probably right. I'm sure he was.
yeah, and they say they had these old oil boilers and stuff. So imagine the kind of heat they had, and then what was going to happen, when all
But
of a
yeah,
sudden we
you go
had
from
this.
boilers to forced air in a leaky house like that, it's going to be a big difference.
Yeah, it was gonna be bad, and then years later, my aunt and uncle had a house, outside near where I live now, and it was an older house, and they had old oil boiler and radiators, and my cousin, who was also in the business, talked them to put in a heat pump, and I'm like, "I wouldn't do it." I learned John Whitman taught me about this.
Yeah,
I think there's some other things. It had single pane glass still in there. I mean, it was like, I don't think, and boy, they put that heat pump in, they regretted it,
yeah,
because they didn't do the other stuff. Now, we ended up talking about it, and I know they got some help. They started changing the windows out and doing some things to try to make it better. But yeah, it's we want to do heat pumps responsibly, I guess, is maybe the best way to say it, right? Because not everything is a fit, and and
yeah.
and we do know that.
So it's not a requirement of the program, but you at least make them aware of it. If you're going to make this decision, you should do these things first, but you can still move forward if you want to.
Exactly, and we also ended up writing a use case for dual fuel as well. Because when I first got there, they're like, they didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, you need to talk about dual fuel because there are instances in buildings where it does make sense. First off, one of the very first use cases that I made about dual fuel was just, homeowner confidence. Sometimes to get somebody to go from fuel over to heat pump, it's like they're just not confident. So they want to keep their fuel source as a backup just to know
Yeah,
that they're going to be warm.
yeah,
And so to me, well, we're getting rid of a one way air conditioner and we're putting in a heat pump. So to me, it's a win. And then when they get confident, providing that the shell and everything else is addressed, when they get confident, then maybe the next time they're like, I really don't need this gas backup. So,
yeah,
but there are load calculations out there where it does make sense, right? Or it may be in an area where gas is just really cheap and it also makes sense. So,
yeah,
we want to do it responsibly and ethically, right? In a way that benefits the end user. Because if we don't do that at the end of the day, then, that's something I want to sign on to be quite honest with
yeah.
you.
You're doing a disservice to people.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
don't know what your rates are like in West Virginia. I mean, I'm in Kentucky, not that far away, but we have pretty cheap electric still. It's still, 11, 12 cents a kilowatt hour and the gas is cheap. So I have a dual fuel in my upstairs system and it's just a straight gas in the downstairs. But the upstairs really never runs on the gas unless it's like, it's gotten down to like the zeros lately and you gotta defrost every once in a while with the heat pump. So that's when it goes to the gas backup. But I like my system. I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, it's funny. So I grew up on oil. Well, first of all, I grew up on wood. We didn't use oil unless we had an issue with wood.
Yeah.
We live in the woods. We burned wood, and that was like the wood
It's free
stove.
except your labor.
Yeah, and I was free labor, right? So my father made sure that I paid for my food by chopping
Good.
wood, and it taught me a lot, right? It's definitely I don't. My childhood was great. So somebody was like, my father worked me to death." I'm like, "My father taught me how to work hard." There's a big,
Yeah.
it's
You
all
should
how you look
appreciate
at it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, if I wouldn't be successful if my dad hadn't made me work, but our wood stove was on the far end of the house, and my bedroom was on the opposite other end. So like mornings was not so much fun, when the fire
Yeah.
kind of died down a little bit. But so then we had an oil furnace, and so then my mother ended up having a lung disease. We went away from wood and it was oil, and tried to get my mom to, it's like finally as they aged, and I hated working on their oil furnace. My dad was no longer able to kind of work on it, and I was, and I'm like, we got this thing out of here. I'm gonna put a heat pump in here, and they're like, I the house, it does have some issues, but it certainly works well with the heat pump. My mom was like, absolutely not. Well, my mom passed away, and I told my dad, I got a measuring tape out a couple of weeks after she passed. My dad's like, what are you doing? I'm measuring this thing up. We're changing this thing out. You know what your mom said? I said, look, mom is home with the Lord. We are changing this thing out.
That's right.
So we ended up putting a heat pump in, but he made me, we're putting a 3-ton. Dad, we don't need 3-ton. I'm gonna do a little calculation on this house. We're gonna figure this thing. No, this is what we got to have, because he had a 2-ton, 2.5-ton air conditioner. So, and it was oversized. It was never comfortable in here. So when my dad passed and we were rehabbing the house, I got my measure tape out again. My wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we're taking this thing out. And so I ended up putting a 2-ton, it's a 17 SEER inverter side discharge, the kind of new craze these
Yeah.
days, a side discharge.
Yep.
But what I did was I didn't connect up my auxiliary heat at all.
Okay. Just see how
Not
it goes.
not even for defrost. Yeah, just see how it goes. So design temperature right here is 15 degrees, and my load calculation, I used Amply to do the scan. I didn't do a blower door, just for full disclosure, but the Amply scan, and I put I think I used semi loose just because I knew there was some issues I was still fixing. And then I did it with average because I knew I was going to make some fixes, so I wanted to kind of see what I had to play with. And so it was like the heat was like 23,000 something, but cooling was only like 17,000, right? It's like, you know. So
Time and a
2-ton
half.
was a yeah, 2-ton was the smallest you can get with these most of these inverter models now, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'll go with it. And so I disconnected electric heat, and when it started to get cold, the first winter I had it in, I got up every morning at like I get up early every morning anyway, like 5 a.m. I'd be making noise. My wife's like, so I ended up putting Emporia in my panel box, so I didn't have to go open everything. And I
Yeah,
got Go V's in my supply and return now, so I could just get up and crunch the numbers and actually throw them in Measure Quick. And so I caught my system on a 16-degree morning that was
perfect.
maintaining 70 on the stat and producing 17,640 BTUs, and I was maintaining temperature.
And it was it a full variable system? Was it like have multiple stages or what?
It's full variable. It goes
Okay.
30% to 100%. Now it was wide open at that time. It was
Okay.
running as high as it could go, but it was maintaining with no electric heat. And even when it went to defrost, it didn't bring on electric heat. So I was every time it went to defrost, it absorbed some heat back. But most people don't realize inverters defrost really well and pretty quickly as compared to a standard conventional style with just a single stage or two-stage compressor. Well, defrosts don't last that long because the way they wind up, they get it hot fast, they get it defrosted, and you're back up and running. And so it's been amazing to kind of. I grew up in this house, so I know all the iterations of this house. And so I spoke at the U.S. Heat Pump Summit this past year, and I actually showed the balance point worksheet for my house, starting with oil.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I was to go propane, right, because my dad was flirting with that, and then the 3-ton heat pump. And then when I finally showed the 2-ton heat pump and the amount of comfort, and lack of short cycling, it's like it,
Yeah.
it creates this visual,
Yeah.
and to me, visuals really help people understand and comprehend, right? Because, sometimes, we talk in these physics terms a lot, and homeowners don't understand those terms. And so we got to do what we can to be able to help bridge that gap and give them an understanding of what's happening so they can make a good decision.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I think it's human nature that people just buy usually based off of emotion first, and so if their emotion is that they've had a bad experience with a heat pump in the past, it's probably gonna be a hard sell for you. But maybe after time and building trust and showing them some evidence and, this is the facts. This is what you can get out of a system when you take everything into consideration properly, then you can make some more headway there.
Yeah, to me, testimonials and visual proof, with hard data, measured data, to me make a huge difference in people's understanding and their willingness to buy.
Yeah,
And selling off of emotion to me is the easiest thing, right? 'Cause if they're like, well, I don't have hey heat pumps. Well, it makes me an easy gas sale. And I'm not against gas appliances. I don't want to come across to be. I work for an organization that promotes electrification, but I certainly live in a real world too. But it just to me that's an easy sell, but it's the right thing, especially in my area where it's propane laden, right? We have a lot of propane and it's
expensive.
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the Rewire America. Tell people like what program can they look at? Like what website do they go to? What exactly does the program give to them as far as dollars or like services? What is it?
Well, if you go to rewiringamerica.org, right, that will be the landing page. And from there, you can look for, there's got so many tools. And so I'll just outline just a few short ones. First off, from there, you can tell them that you're interested in electrification, and it'll take you to the place in the site that allow you kind of to plug in where you live, what you currently have, potential savings as part of that electrification planner, but also it'll also tell you what rebates and things and programs are available in your area. So that's just on the website alone. That doesn't cost anybody, and none of this ever cost anybody a thing. Right? That's what we tell everybody all the time. It's like Rewire does not. We're a nonprofit. We operate all philanthropic funds for folks that want to invest in this. And so we don't ever charge anybody for anything. So all the electrification plan tools, all of that stuff is absolutely free. But then from there, we are running programs in different locations. So we just got done a campaign at the first of the year where we were running a campaign in San Jose, California. That we partnered up with contractors out there. And so what we did was we actually negotiated discounted pricing with those contractors. We did all the marketing, right? Because a lot of times contractors are paying for leads. And so we were able to go to them and say, the leads cost you absolutely nothing. There's no cost for any leads. But here's the program. Here's the things we require. We require, an actual job site visit. We require a proper load calculation, audit of the electrical panel, all these things that are necessary to make sure that this is done correctly. And so but for that, for us giving you these warm leads, because what we did is we did these campaigns, homeowners would contact us, we kind of pre-vet them. And then by the time we sent the lead to the contractor, it was, it was pretty warm. I mean, these people were very interested in buying.
Yeah,
And then what the homeowners got out of that though was typically about a 20% discount on what they could have got on the street.
it's awesome.
Yeah, and so we also made sure the contractors use an equipment that we agreed with or that we were okay with. And on the back end, we would look at the quotes if a homeowner had a question about a quote, they could call us and we would look at the load calc, we look at the sizing of the system to make sure that it was done correctly, answer questions so that that contractor didn't have to because we're asking for a discount and for that we're going to help.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so myself and a guy, Darren Reuter, who actually was an engineer to work for Carrier, guy's one of the most brilliant guys I've ever met. He's a like freaking math wizard, and he helped write some of the algorithms that control the EEVs in the Greensby product. I mean, that's how intelligent this guy is. He and I together would look at, the load counts or, the sizing of the equipment and the rebates and all that. And we had all these tools that would help them aggregate all that stuff together so that the homeowner ended up with the lowest possible install dollar possible. And so what Rewire is doing is they're constantly scouring, they have a lot of relationships with energy providers, with community-based organizations, things like that, where they're always looking for where the biggest rebates are and where the need is. And that's where we try to go and make a focus, right? So we have our website that has all these electrification planning tools, calculators, savings calculators, and finding contractors. That's for anybody. But then we also look at these hotspots in the country. Another one was Richmond, Virginia. Matter of fact, that we partnered up with John Semmelhack, who I'm sure you know who
Yeah.
John is. And so John, I think we helped him end up closing, I was 20 some, almost 30, heat pump installations down there in Richmond, partnering with him and community-based organizations to kind of find, the customers that had the need that wanted to buy but kind of needed help. Rewire actually kind of helped sweeten the deal a little bit by having some funds that we were able to put toward the install as well, and partnered with him because John is all about making sure the calculations are right, and that he's not going to put a system in a house that's just not fit for it, and we knew that, and that's the kind of people we wanted to partner with, and so people in Richmond, Virginia, ended up with a really good deal as well. We also did Rhode Island that had the weatherization as part of their requirements as well. And we did a lot of systems up there in Rhode Island in partnership with the rebates they had and with the weatherization plan.
So do you work with the community action programs across the United States, the low income weatherization assistance programs?
We do. Well, I've been on several meetings with them, and we try to help one another. And I know that they have some things in the mix now as well. So yeah, we're definitely. I've definitely been in several of those meetings talking to some of those folks.
It seems pretty complimentary. I mean, that's where I got my start was in low income weatherization assistance
Wow.
in Indiana. So there's a group called INCA, which is the Indiana Community Action Association, and they have a training center and a lot of really good people there. But anybody that wants to work in the program as a tradesman or an auditor, you have to go through training with them. And so they would I'm sure invite a conversation with you if you haven't already talked to
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's so many,
them.
I didn't realize there were so many out there, to be quite honest with you. And we have actually had a lady that was with Rewire that had worked for a lot of community-based organizations around finance. And I didn't realize there's also so much financial help. And I left that out because I'm so geared up for HVAC. I forget that not only that, we also had special financing that we had worked through with folks like Knife, NEIF, who's also profit, right? So the lower interest rate. What we do is we partner with certain finance groups that we know don't have predatory practice. In other words, sometimes those 3 years same as cash, 36 months same as cash aren't great deals if you don't get it paid off in 36 months. And so all that interest gets tacked on. Well, we made sure that we partnered with some uh, more friendly finance groups that had a lot lower interest rates, that didn't have predatory practices that we knew were going to help them be able to secure the loan they needed if they needed to finance. So they
Yeah.
didn't have to go to a credit card type of interest rate. and stuff like that. So that's the other piece that I left out of that.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to try to do is drill down for a homeowner scenario. So I'm a homeowner in Indiana, for example. I've got a 3-bedroom house, 3-ton system, whatever. What kind of dollar amount of rebates or savings or whatever is can I expect by going with your program? Like if I need to upgrade my electric panel, what can you help me with as far as that goes? And it's a discount. It sounds like with the contractor to get the HVAC system installed, but like let's talk some numbers.
Well, the only problem with that is that we have our contractor network and we have all these electrification tools that are just kind of nationwide. But when it comes to
Okay.
these programs, they are very community specific, right? So what we would to do if let's say the Indiana was on our radar, and we're like, you know what, we want to have a program in Indiana because we know there's rebates available. A lot of people don't even know about them,
Yeah.
and so what we would do is we would have our community folks go to those areas and contact the proper folks to find out what the rebates are, what are the specifications of the rebates. Because when we talk to contractors, we know, like, look, the only equipment we're interested in is what meets these rebates. We don't want to talk about anything else. We don't want to go out here and slapping in a single stage 14 tier because we know it's not going to meet the requirement, right? And so then what we do, once we find out what those rebates are, then we find contractors in that area either that are already on our network, or we may partner. Like we have a special relationship with Carrier, and we may talk to the national carrier folks to put us in contact with the local distributor there in Indiana, whether it's like Cook Air or one of those guys, and find out, who's the contractors that we want to be working with, who's willing to maintain this standard that we have. And then we would go to them and we would negotiate the discount. Now we can do it two ways. There's sometimes we negotiate just a discount off of the price, or sometimes we have special alliances with folks where we have negotiated pricing on the equipment itself, and we make sure that discount of the equipment itself is passed on to the end user, right? So what we would do is we come to that area, we find out all the rebates available, what's necessary. That way we make sure that we're only using what meets the requirements, and then we negotiate with the contractor because the contractor has to do no marketing. They don't have to pay for any leads. And so they're willing to give a discount just off of that. Plus, it's kind of guaranteed work and it gives back to the community. And
Yeah.
so then we package that. And what we do is we'll take that contractor and say, okay, we want to kind of standardized pricing on 2-3 ton ducted change out and a 2 and 3 ton 3 head ductless, just to give us a standard point. And then what we do is we will actually market and say, okay, here's the price range of these. Now that's based upon, these are kind of the prices that range that you could expect. And the contractor will go out. But when they go out and they give them an estimate, they have to upload it to us so that we could also see it. That way we keep them honest because we've already got benchmark pricing. So they can't, right? They can't
Yeah.
pull the wool. And then we talk to them about upgrades, right? So, okay, if they need a panel box upgrade, what does that look like, right? And we try to negotiate that pricing to kind of fix that as well. Some contractors have people that can do it in house. Some people have to farm it out to an electrician. We work with them kind of on that, but we try to pre-negotiate as much as we can, knowing that there's always an outlier, and we get that. But
Right.
the thing is, if there's an outlier, you talk to us so that we know, and that way we can make sure the homeowners get the best benefit.
So tell me if I'm hearing this correctly. It's not exactly a dollar amount that's allocated to the homeowner for a particular system or for a particular panel upgrade. It's more of like you're going with our approved contractors who have been vetted out, and there is going to be a discount for their services and installation because we've already arranged that in advance for you. And so you'll experience that. It's not like, hey, I'm going to give you $900 towards a new panel that might cost you $2,000 or what.
That is correct. Yep.
Okay.
So between the pre-vetting of the contractor, pre-vetting of the equipment to make sure it meets the rebates, helping them get all the information to make sure the rebates are actually applied for. We also talk to the contractors about that. Some contractors will do the paperwork. Like in Rhode Island, the contractor we used there for that big project, the big Rhode Island, Save Rhode Island or whatever it was called, they actually could file the rebate and have it sent to them. So they took it right off the top. And so when that customer paid the final bill, the rebate dollars were already taken off and they didn't have to pay that and wait for their money back. The contractor
Nice.
got their money back and put it back in their account, right? And so, um, you know, a lot of people won't do that, but since we were developing this program and we were there working with them, they're like, yeah, you know what, for this program, we'll do it. And so those are the kind of negotiations we do that homeowners are never, they're not used to having somebody negotiate on their behalf in that way.
Yeah.
with the kind of weight that we can have, right?
Yeah.
Because of what we do on the marketing side, and we bring those leads that are warm, and the closing rate on most of these jobs, to be quite honest with you, was close to 60%.
It's a pretty good lead.
Yeah, when you kind of look at the closing rate on the Google, these are a lot less. To be quite honest with you, no knock on Google, but they're just people just clicking, where the people they will drop out of our stuff before we give them to the contractor. If they weren't going to buy, they'll drop out before it gets to that point because we kind of make
Yeah.
sure of that.
They're already interested enough. They spend enough time looking through it and giving you information and all that kind of stuff. So you
That is
mentioned
correct.
earlier, Amply Energy and doing heating, cooling load calculations. Do you guys require them to use a specific heating, cooling load tool or software program or your
No,
preferred?
we typically say it's got to be ACA approved. That's kind of how our verbiage reads. Now we know that there are some folks that are doing some really cool stuff out here with low calcs. But we know that ACA approved load calculation software is safe, to be quite honest with you. Now, we know there's some folks that have proprietary stuff, but we have been, there's a couple people that came to us with some proprietary, like large companies that have proprietary, and we're like, okay, well, show me some data where you've done a load calculation with the ACA approved, right? And then with yours, and let us kind of side by side. So
Yeah, yeah,
'cause there's some folks that are doing some really good stuff, and the physics are the physics, but at the same time, we wanna make sure that it's on the up and up, and so we've got a great relationship with Amply, but there's several others out there as well. But we also know that bad information in is bad information out.
absolutely.
When I was at the USC Pump Summit, my cousin had a problem with the house he just bought. It was a rehab kinda house. He was a somebody flipped it, and did a bunch of work, but they didn't
Yeah,
quite do everything.
yeah,
And he had a problem. So the contractor, I was out of town. He called me. He's like, I'm gonna call a local guy that, cause my cousin actually works for a HVAC distributor, but he's not a technician, right? He don't know a
okay.
lot. He,
Yeah,
he, he can sell you a lot of parts though.
yeah,
And so he's like, hey, I got one of the contractors I know is going to come by and take a look at it. The guy walks in the house, has a full tape measure out. I could already tell you right now that system's undersized. That's what he told me.
well, okay.
So I said, well, tell him to send you a load calculation. Yeah, he said he's going to do it. I said, well, did he take any measurements while he was there? No. Did he scan anything? No. Okay. Well, send it to me when he does, right? So when I got home, there was a load calculation in my email, and I almost laughed, dude, because I know what was in the house because my cousin had all the insulation removed, all the top plates sealed, and then re-insulated properly to R50. I do know that for a fact, right? So
Yeah,
there's number one. Number two, his basement is conditioned on a separate system with a ductless system. So
okay.
his floor is neutral, right? There's no load on it because the basement's heated, right? And so the load calculation that he received showed that the house was on an unconditioned crawl with no insulation, right? Uh, had R27 in the attic, not R50. Had it as loose, which we know it wasn't. All the windows were replaced too, by the way. Low E, all new windows, all new doors, R50, top plate sealed.
Yeah,
Now, again, I didn't do a blower door, but the work that has been done so far, it's certainly not loose.
it's not loose. Yeah,
Yeah, and, he said that basically that the 2.5 ton heat pump he had in his house was grossly undersized, he needed a 4 ton. I went in, did a
garbage in, garbage out, man.
Yep, I went in and did a scan with Amply and put in everything correctly. Also, he had the square footage way off it because he used one that uses Google Earth, I'm not gonna name it, but, where you just trace it out.
The roof outline. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he had a almost 1,900 square foot house, but actually technically it's like 1,660 something, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, just, I saw the brand, name on it. I knew what it is. Like even that can be done right if you input it right, it doesn't
yeah.
matter. The math is the math. But I scanned it and actually he's about a half ton over.
The 2 ton was a half ton over.
Yeah. What was the real problem is when the insulators insulated, he had a ductboard plenum for a return. They had stepped on it and he was sucking in attic air. That was the real problem.
Oh, man, I hate ductboard.
I do too. He doesn't have it anymore. It got ripped out.
I've seen so many crappy systems with ductboard just blown apart after a year or 2. It just the cheapest tape holding that stuff together, and then it gets moist, and it's over.
It's over. But, there's so many homeowners out here that don't have people that step up on their behalf. And that's one of the things that we're really focused on is when we do go to a community, we want to do good by the community. When we leave there, we want people to say, wow, they really helped us. So when I first got to Rewire, they did a project in DeSoto, Georgia. DeSoto, Georgia is about 3 hours south of Atlanta. I didn't even know
Okay.
that Georgia went down that far. I mean, it was like I was down there.
Yeah.
So I booked a flight to get in late that evening because I was had to be able to job next morning. And then they asked me, like, "You do realize that when you leave the airport, you got a 3 hour drive, right?" And I'm like,
I should have flown somewhere else.
"No, I did not know that." Probably would have got in at least earlier that day. I'm driving. I didn't get in till like 11:30 that night to this little hotel, this little place, but the thing was, it was a really destitute area. I mean, it was just the folks there, just it was sad, and there was some money that with grants that were secured to kind of help these folks in this little old town of DeSoto. And I had homeowners hugging me. They're like, "Man, I just, it's been so expensive to heat my house with this little gas wall heaters and all this. And now, I'm more comfortable. Um, I don't pay as much to heat my home." And like these people were hugging me, giving me like muffins. And I'm like, oh my goodness. It was like the nicest people ever in the world.
Yeah.
But just to see that look on their face and they knew that someone helped them when they normally get ignored because of where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a service-minded attitude for sure. And I don't know if you wanna touch on this or not, but I see the scripture behind you, and I feel like do I are you a pastor as well?
I am. Yes, sir.
So how did you become a pastor and stay in the HVAC game, and how does that work with in your world?
Well, thank you for asking. I don't like it's just a part of who I am. I don't say much about it until people kind of ask me. It's like you just treat people with kindness, and if they actually ever ask you why, you tell them. So, I live in a little town called Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, and so there's a few big churches here that have some paid pastors, but a lot of the smaller churches is what people call bivocational, right? So, um, I felt called to ministry. I actually traveled playing gospel music for years. I traveled down to the
Really?
Carolinas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio. Yeah, I traveled for years on buses playing gospel music every weekend. Even when
That's
I was in
cool.
school, yeah, my aunt and uncle would pick me up on Friday afternoon, get me out of school early, and we'd take off, and I'd get home Sunday night, early Monday morning, go back to, school for the week, but I felt drawn to the ministry. It's one thing to be able to go out and play music. It's all great and fun, but it's like you're not really impacting you're impacting it for a moment,
Yeah.
but not impacting it for the long haul. And so I just felt drawn to the ministry. And in many denominations, like you can study underneath another pastor and they can kind of, then you have to go for a board that say that kind of when you're ready, and they're more looking at your study habits. Is he really studying? Is he, is he really speaking truth, or is it, or is he up there winging it, right? And so you kind of go for a board that's going to, give you the actual ordain you or not. Then after I did that, and I ended up pastoring the church that I come up under that pastor. I left there for a little while to help another church, and then ended up they lost their pastor. I ended up going back and pastor that church, and I'm in my 19th year now. But what happened is I'm and I can talk, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
holding people's attention and stuff's not a big deal. And I love the Bible and I love talking about it. But you ever just felt like it's just like I am with HVAC, right? Just like, there's something, I've always been drawn to know more, right? I read textbooks, I read the Bible. These like my wife drive my wife crazy, right? And so I felt like I just needed to know more. And so I ended up doing a 2 year program at a Welch College out of Nashville, Tennessee, to get my associates in ministry so that I felt more rounded and better studied and better understanding so that I could better deliver truth and make sure that I am understanding the truth, right? And so after doing it for a while, the weight of it hits you, and you're like, "Oh, crud," "Oh, yeah, I think I need to get a little deeper in here." And so I went to school for ministry, that way, but it was after the fact, to be quite honest with you. And so I'm bivocational. Honestly, I don't take anything from the church just simply because God has blessed me with a great HVAC career, and I've always been able to take care of my family and have a little left over. And so our church is really geared toward helping the community. We have a clothing ministry. We took our fellowship hall, built a second floor. It used to be like a school thing, but now we set it up like a department store. And so the first and third Saturdays of every month, we invite the community to come in and get whatever they need. If we got it, you can have it. And it's
Beautiful.
amazing how many people that don't have a whole lot, but they got something they don't need, and they come back and they feel like they're giving. And so they will give in something like clothing that they can't wear, but they take clothing that they do need.
Yeah.
So it's really fulfilling, and honestly, that's how I ended up at Rewire. Was a friend of mine tipped me off about it, and I'm like, "Okay, well, you're trying to help low to moderate income people. Those are my people." right? I don't live in an affluent neighborhood, like a bunch of farm country and hillbillies like myself, but to be able to help, now also and use my HVAC knowledge and career to also help people was just kind of a win for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, one of the big reasons why I decided to get into this, this teaching aspect and sharing and stuff like that is just I felt like God has put me in a position to have the experiences that I've had over the last 20 years in the industry and the amount of knowledge that I've learned. I don't want to keep it up in here. Like I want other people to know, not only in my town, in my region. Like if I can teach somebody on the other side of the country or the other side of the world, and it helps them, then it's very satisfying to me. And I didn't start doing this to make a bunch of money doing it. I don't expect to make a bunch of money doing it, but I just felt like I had something to share and something to give, and I hope somebody learned something from it. Honestly,
Yeah, I teach from two perspectives, right? So I teach number one perspective is this: I feel like if I could take what I've learned and I can impart it to someone else and I can make their life better and help them, then that's a win for me, right? Because we've all been, I don't know, I'm sure that in what you do with home performance and all, you've been the same way. Sometimes you go home and a problem kicked your butt that day. You're like, man, I couldn't figure that out. I was
yeah,
and I would go home and I would read. We didn't have Google back when I started this business, and there wasn't no Chat GPT. There was a
yeah,
modern refrigeration book, and I'd go home and I'd take like if there was an installation manual, I'd grab it, right? Especially if it was a unit I was working on, I couldn't figure it. I'd grab it, I'd go read it, and like send me back the next day. I want to be the guy to go back. I'm gonna figure this out, but I'd read everything I could, sequence of operations and all. But what happened was I realized that I was not worth a plug nickel for that whole evening to my family, to be quite honest with you, right? Because
mm,
I get driven and now my
tunnel
wife's like,
vision.
"Hey, you wanna go out and eat?" "Nope. I gotta figure this out," or the kids are like, "You wanna go out throw a ball?" "Not right now." And so I regret some of those days, don't get me wrong. So I
Yeah,
look at it that if I can help people not have those days as often,
yeah,
then I can help your quality of life. That's just the way I look at it. I don't wanna hopefully I don't sound weird or facetious, but or kinda just like a bloated ego. It's just simply that if we can share information together and I don't have to struggle, you don't have to struggle, this is just a win, right?
yeah,
Then
totally.
the other part of this is everything we do is physics, and I believe in the laws of physics whereby our creator himself. And the physics works, right? Because the thing is, the rationale is that for something to be rational, it has to be consistent every time. Heat moves from warmer to cooler every time. High pressure will seek to equalize with low pressure every time, right? And these are the things that we know. So when I'm teaching physics, I don't have to come out and say God created this, but I'm teaching from the perspective, this is his glory. He created these things and we've harnessed the understanding of it with his help. And we're using it, right, to create comfort in our homes and do these things. And to me, it's just like it just, everything you do is unto the Lord. And so I just look at it from that perspective that I'm getting to teach what he created. And
Yeah,
you can call it HVAC, but I know who created it. And I just kind of just makes me smile.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, there's not enough homeowner advocates out there, and so that's one of the things that I think about a lot is, whether you're talking about new construction, homeowners buying a new house and them not knowing like what they don't know about that process, or if they're already in a house and trying to figure out what the problems are, like who really is the homeowner's advocate in these situations? And you would hope that it's the HVAC contractor or the insulation guy or the builder or whatever, or even the home inspector, but there's just sometimes it's simply not. I mean, there's just all these other agendas behind the scenes going on, and money plays a large part in these things. So I think it's awesome that you've taken that perspective and that you are a true homeowners advocate in that respect. So why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, any websites or socials or anything that's like that you got if they want to apply for the program?
Yeah, and so the easiest way to get a hold of me is literally just huff at rewiringamerica.org, right? If you email huff, Huff at rewiringamerica.org, it'll come straight to me and I can help point them to the right area. If you just want to go and look at the website, you can go to rewiringamerica.org and you can see all that it offers there. And you can also find our contractor locator, things like that there. If you want to be a part of our contractor network, then the best way is to go to betterhvac.org. And because the first step in being a part of our network is registering with Better HVAC. And once you register with Better HVAC, then you'll actually see on there the tab to be able to apply for your Rewire badge. And so, again, can I just plug Better HVAC just for a second? Because Better
Sure.
HVAC is not just about HVACs. They want, home performance contractors, folks that do, even plumbing, water heaters, things like that, right? All the things that really affect the homeowner's bottom line, because those are the two biggest things: energy consumption, your heating, and air conditioning, and your water, to make domestic hot water. So, Better HVAC exists to be able to be that resource for homeowners as well. And so I look at Better HVAC as just a big congregating place. And then Rewire draws from that. All the people that have the Rewire badge is who you see on our site, right?
Gotcha.
And so we work in partnership with them, and they are a great organization. And the whole idea is they are also homeowner centric, because not everybody's going to think of Rewiring America. And we know that, right? We know that. And so we also want to promote Better HVAC, because that's more of a generic gathering place, but it's a place where everybody can gather. And by the way, they also have a BPI badge on there now. So the folks that are BPI certified
Okay.
also have a badge on there as well. So if you go to betterhvac.org and look for a contractor, if they're Rewire approved, there'll be a Rewire badge. And if they're BPI certified, they'll have a BPI badge. So that's another great resource for homeowners, because at the end of the day, Bill and Kevin developed it not only for a congregating place of like-minded people, but also so the homeowners could find us in one place. And
Yeah.
so it's a great resource.
That's awesome. Well, I'll put the link in the description for both Rewire America and Better HVAC. Some of these other links that we've talked about throughout the conversation here, so they can get a hold of you. And if you don't mind, I can put your email in there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really appreciate it, man. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed learning more about you as a person as well as the program. And I hope to have you back on the show again sometime. So, anything else to sign off with, or
No, I just appreciate your time. It's like I don't see myself as somebody really wants people to hear about, but I love talking to folks like yourself. I enjoyed meeting you at the NCI. It's weird how we just kind of ended up talking there, gathered around a couple guys, and just kind of struck up a great conversation. And we need more folks like you out here promoting this. And at the end of the day, most of us work really hard for our money. There may be a few elite people in this world that's got it; they ain't got to worry about it, but most people don't. And so these are the people. These are our neighbors, right? And so doing everything we can to take care of our neighbors is an important thing. So I really appreciate what you do.
yeah, I appreciate you, man. So I will talk to you, I'm sure, on a new future episode. And until then, best of luck with your job, and I'll keep pushing people to rewire America.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Eric.
All right, take care.
All right, bud. See you.